Hello Matrix, and welcome to another Was a Matrix with me, Looney. Today we are focusing on your exam guide for Business Studies Paper 2. All you need to do to hit us up with your questions and comments is check us out on all our social media platforms. Just search for Was a Matrix, as well as our WhatsApp line, and all the details will be on the screen. We do have a fun competition going on, guys, so please check that out later on in the show. As always, I'm not alone. With me are my sign language interpreter, Nicolene, as well as my awesome teacher, Dave. Thank you so much, guys, and over to you.
Welcome, Matrix. I hope you all are keeping well and that you've been putting in a lot of graft. Less than 2 months to go, so let's just make sure that you guys are putting in all that effort that you guys can get the marks that you guys so justly deserve. Right, so we're going to be talking about paper 2 today. I'll be going through how the paper will be structured, what it will be made up of, the different sections, their mark allocations, and then we'll also be discussing various things that confuse a lot of you matrix, just to make sure that you guys can get the best out of your paper. So without any further ado, let's get cracking. Alright, so from 2020, you'll be writing 2 papers. You'll be writing paper 1 and paper 2. Each paper will be out of 150 marks, which will give you 300 marks in total, and each paper is 2 hours. So that comes in at about 1.25 minutes, marks per minute, that you guys must strive to adhere to. So that you don't leave out any questions and that you don't run out of time for your paper. So let's see what the paper comprises of. So firstly, we've got section A, which is for 30 marks. That'll be made up of 3 sections. So you're going to have your multiple choice, you're going to have the correct word, and then you're also going to have match the correct terms. Each one of those various subsections will have 5 questions in them for 2 marks each, giving a total of 10 marks per sub-question, and section A is for 30 marks. You ideally should be spending about 10 to 20 minutes on section A. Please don't go over that, otherwise you won't have enough time for your section B and section C. So just be very cognizant of your time when answering the section A questions. Section B will have 3 questions of 40 marks each. You only have to answer 2 of them. Make sure that you only answer 2. Do not answer all 3 questions, because the matric markers will only mark the first 2 questions, and then you won't have enough time to finish your essay. These questions will comprise as follows. 1 question will be on business ventures, so all the topics from business ventures. The next question will be on business roles and all the topics from business roles. Then the 3rd question of section B will be a combination between business ventures and business roles. So make sure that when you pick whichever question, you are most comfortable with that topic, either business roles or business ventures. That'll be for section B will be for 80 marks in total, with the 2 questions coming in at 40 marks per question. And then finally, section C, which is your essay question. You'll have the choice of 2 questions there, either business ventures or business roles in the essay, and then you choose one of those topics to answer for 40 marks. You want to try and leave yourself at least 30 minutes in order to answer that question, so that you have enough time. Alternatively, you can start your questions in any order that you want. So if you want to start with your essay, you're more than welcome to. But once again, guys, I cannot reiterate this enough. Please make sure that you adhere to the time allocation, so that you don't run out of time for your paper. All right, so I'm going to go through what comprises of business ventures and what comprises of business roles in your paper. So if we see there, the first one is management and leadership. So you need to know, right, what is management, what is leadership, and everything that falls under there. Then we have investments in terms of securities and opportunities. So that will be like our different types of investments, how we can invest. The second one on investments is insurance. So we're going to talk about like the different types of insurance that we'll get there. It does go a little bit hand in hand with investments, but make sure that you are able to distinguish between the two. Then we're going to have our forms of ownership, and with a focus on how they can contribute to the success or failure of a business. So different forms of ownerships, different factors will determine if they are going to be successful or if they're going to be a failure. And then the final one is presentation and data response. Quite funny, I'm actually busy doing a presentation right now to you, so we'll be discussing that. And then when we go into our business roles, right, we'll be looking at ethics and professionalism, right, the difference between the two, why they are important. We'll also be looking at the difference between creative thinking and problem solving, right, the different problem solving techniques, why creativity and creative thinking is important. Then we'll be looking at social responsibility, and in particular corporate social responsibility, as well as corporate social investment, and what's the difference between the two there. Something that a lot of you get confused with, so hopefully we'll be able to alleviate that confusion for you. And then the final two, human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. And then the final section is team performance assessment and conflict management. So we'll talk about like how a team is structured, and we'll also talk about conflict, what causes conflict, and how we can resolve that conflict. All right, so tips for preparing for paper 2. Firstly of all, the big thing, leadership and management. You need to know what is the difference between leadership and management. So a leader is someone who looks to inspire their followers, they motivate their followers, they get their followers to follow them because they want to, right? Where management is a position, and they give instructions to their subordinates, and if their subordinates do not follow the instructions, there are repercussions there. So leadership is looking at characteristics that a person can have, where management has got to do with like a particular position. So think of like the principal of your school, that is a management position there, right? Where you might have like leaders in your school within your peer group that are leaders, and you want to follow them because you're motivated by them, and they inspire you to do the right thing. And we need to know the different leadership styles. So you need to know the different leadership styles. You need to know the advantages and disadvantages of each style and where they would be used best. So if we look at a democratic leadership style, it's very good in terms of that the employees feel empowered, they feel valued because the leader is asking for their input. However, a negative of a democratic leadership style is that if there's a crisis situation and I need to make a decision straight away, I cannot ask a whole bunch of different people their opinions. I have to make that decision there. So know the different types of leadership styles, what their characteristics are, and their advantages and disadvantages. Do not confuse leadership styles with leadership theories. All right, so leadership theories are like how different types of leaders will potentially can use different leadership styles. So perhaps your teacher for one period will use a democratic approach where they're like, right, what do you feel like doing in class today? And another time they might use an autocratic approach. So say now that you have an assessment that you have to do in class that has to be marked for that day. They can't ask you your opinion. They have to tell you what to do there. So you need to understand the difference between your leadership styles and your leadership theories. All right, and then we need to also know the different types of investments that are available to you. You need to know the characteristics of those investments. You also need to know the advantages and disadvantages of those particular investments. And if we look at the investments that we have, government RSA retail savings bonds, right, where it's essentially we almost investing in the government. Quite a long-term investment, not massive growth, but it's quite safe. So you need to know, right, and you also need to understand how you can rate different investments according to different criteria, such as your return on investment, the time frame of your investment, the risk. So you must know how yet you can relate it to unit trust, shares, fixed deposits. So you need to understand like how you can evaluate the different investments according to the criteria that you have, where risk is one of them, your return on investment, the term of the investment as well. Right, which leads into what I was saying there, the factors to be considered. So our return on investment, right, so how much am I going to get for every 100 Rand that I put in? How much am I getting back out? So that's going to be my return on investment, and you'll usually look at that as a percentage. Right, we're going to look at our risk. Remember the relationship with risk: high risk, right, high reward, right, low risk, low reward. So make sure you understand that relationship when it comes to investments. As I mentioned, the term and the period. How long is it? If we look at a fixed deposit compared to if I'm going to buy shares, right, their terms differ significantly. In our inflation rate, you always want to make sure that your investment beats the inflation rate. Otherwise, you're going to be losing money on your investment. We're going to look at our taxation. How much are we going to get taxed? Liquidity, how easy I can convert it into cash. We're also going to look at our personal budget, right? So you can see you need to know all of these various factors. It can be a Section B question, and it can also be part of a Section C essay question. Right, so you must also know the different shares that are available. So we'll have our ordinary shares, and under our ordinary shares, there falls a whole variety of different shares. So you've got like your founders' shares, right? And you'll also need to know your different preference shares, such as your cumulative preference shares, participating preference shares. What I would do if I was you guys, I'd create a whole table with all the different shares' names, and you speak about their characteristics so that you have a clear understanding, and divide it between ordinary and preference shares. Right. We also need to look at insurance versus assurance. So insurance is for in case something happens. It's often on the assets of someone or an organization. So you might have insurance on your phone in case it gets stolen or it gets damaged, and it never gets stolen or damaged, and you never claim from insurance, right? So remember, insurance is for in case, where assurance is for something that is guaranteed to happen. So we are guaranteed to retire one day. Hopefully you guys get good enough marks that you can retire sooner rather than later, right? We are guaranteed, unfortunately, of death one day. So assurance is there for things that are guaranteed to happen to us. And then you will also need to know the average clause and the calculation. A lot of the papers have got that calculation there. Know the entire formula, right? So, and don't skip any steps. Substitute when you've got the formula. Substitute all the values into it, and then give your answer. Because you might get your answer in there, but if you skipped a couple of steps, you're going to be losing out on quite a few marks. It's also just something very good for you guys to have as you go into the real world and you take out insurance one day, to make sure that you don't get caught out there by the insurance company. Right, we've got compulsory insurance versus voluntary insurance. So which insurances are compulsory? Unemployment insurance fund, where my cell phone insurance is non-compulsory. I can decide whether or not to have that insurance, all right? And then when we look at forms of ownership, we're going to be looking at factors that are either going to contribute to the success or failure of different forms of ownership in terms of the capacity, tax implications, management, how much capital can I get into the business because of this form of ownership, how do we divide the division of profits, and any legislation that could be relevant to that particular form of ownership. And then we've got the difference between ethics and professionalism. So remember, ethics is all about doing what is morally right, where professionalism is all about working to a certain standard that industry holds. Now, you'll be given questions where they might say, right, take this behavior, is it unethical or unprofessional? And you'll have to state which one you think it is. Right, and then we're going to look at problem solving and creativity. We're going to look at our different problem solving techniques, right? Don't confuse problem solving with creativity, right? And you must know the different problem solving techniques that you can get, right? And then we've got to look at our corporate social responsibility versus corporate social investment. And then we also have to look at the different human rights that we'll have in the workplace, and to ensure inclusivity and diversity within the workplace. And then we're going to look at our team performance, so the stages of a team and the criteria to assess team performance. And then you must also look at the difference between grievance and conflict. Grievance is a more formal procedure that someone will lodge in the workplace if they're unhappy with something, where conflict, it can happen anywhere in the workplace, and sometimes it doesn't need to go to a grievance procedure. Looney.
Thank you so much, Dave. Guys, let's take a quick break and then we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back from the break, Matrix. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've just joined us, we are doing the exam guide to assist you with the upcoming exams. Well, if you're someone who's constantly running out of data, this next competition is just for you. Wazimatrix is bringing you #WazOWinner competition, where 2 lucky matriculants stand a chance to win 2 gigs of data. All you need to do is check out our Facebook page for all of the details and enter the competition. Well, enough talking from me, straight to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Lini. We're going to be going through some past questions now. We're going to be focusing a little bit on a Section C question. However, remember that your essay questions that you have, which will be made up of 4 sub-questions, can also be potential Section B questions. So you need to understand this very, very well. And you also need to realize that your essays will be made up of a whole bunch of different sections. So right now we've got business ventures and business roles. So let's see what this question has in store for us. So firstly, by reading it, we can see Peter and Teko are partners. As soon as we see the term partners, we know that this is going to have something to do with the form of ownership, because partners are owners of a partnership. So it's got to do something with a bit of a form of ownership there. In P&T Consultancy, they are considering investing. Right, investing. So now we know, okay, investments are going to come up here potentially. All right. There's surplus funds in RSA retail savings bonds and also in preference shares on the JSE. So we can see right now they've given us 2 potential types of investments, either RSL retail savings bonds or preference shares. So we know that this essay is going to be about forms of ownership as well as investing. So let's see what the question is going to ask from us. All right, so keeping the above scenario in mind, write an essay on investments and forms of ownership, right, which we've already discussed, as you can see there. So let's see what the first sub-question is going to ask us. All right, so it asks us, outline the functions of the JSE. Now remember, this can also be a Section B question. All right, so we're going to start with our introduction, and then we are going to move on to the outline the functions of the JSE. All right, and then, so in terms of our introduction, right, okay, your introduction, you want to keep it short, sweet, to the point. Don't forget in your essays you need to write in full sentences. And for your introduction, you get 1 mark per valid point that you bring in there. So if we look at this introduction, what it's saying here, the JSE is a formal market comprising of all public companies that have been listed. Right, remember, a public company is listed on the JSE. And you could have also said various services are offered to listed companies by the JSE. All right. Other possible answers, you can talk about preference shares, right? Whether or not you think they are a viable investment, all right? And then we could also talk about the National Treasury and the RSA retail savings bonds, and like just mention them really, really briefly there. All right. You can also talk about a partnership in your introduction, right, where you talk about it a little bit there, and then any other relevant introduction related to investments or to the forms of ownership in terms of a partnership, as well as investments, something related to the JSE or any of the forms of investments that they have mentioned already in your case study. Do not, in your introduction, reword the question, right, and tell us stuff from the case study already. Think of your introduction as a starter at a restaurant, right? It's just there to make you a little bit more hungry and to get things started there. The same with your introduction. You want the marker to want to be interested in reading what you have written in your paper. All right, so if we look at the first part of the actual body of your essay is outline the functions of the JSE. Please, guys, remember you have to have the right layout for your essays. Start with your introduction. First heading, underline it, your points on your introduction, skip a line, and then you start your body, right? And start with the headings from the different questions. If we see our first point of our body is functions of the JSE. So we're going to see what are the functions of the JSE. Don't forget, write full sentences. If you don't write full sentences, you won't get all the marks that you deserve. And also make sure that each new point starts on a different line. Don't forget, the markers are marking thousands of papers. Like if they have to search through your work, there's no spaces, there's no paragraphs, it's just one big mess. You're more than likely not going to be able to get the marks that you deserve. So remember, each new point, new line there. Okay, so let's look. So the JSE gives opportunities for financial institutions to invest funds in the JSE to grow money. So if you look at insurance companies, they need to make sure that they have a lot of money available, so when people claim that they can actually pay out their claims there. So it allows financial institutions to invest their excess money in the JSE. Right, it serves as a barometer, right, for the economic conditions of a country. So when the JSE is doing well in South Africa, it serves as an economic barometer. It says, right, South Africa is doing well economically. As you would have seen, stock markets all around the world during the COVID pandemic, right, they started to drop quite a bit. And if you see, like, the world economy due to COVID went into a recession, and where the stock markets were a barometer for that. So when the stock market is doing well, generally a country is doing well. When the stock market is struggling, then you'll see a country struggling as well. Right, the JSE keeps investors informed on share prices. because it publishes the prices of the shares daily through various publications, either in newspapers or even on websites. So it gives that information so that investors can see how their shares actually performing. Right. It acts as a link between the company and potential investors. Right, so a company might want to sell a lot of shares so that they can get money in, that they can expand their company, where the JSE is that link. So you'll have people that will have extra money that they want to invest, and you'll have companies that need that money. The JSE serves as that perfect like middleman between the investors and the companies. Right, and shares are valued and assessed by experts. So you're going to have your stockbrokers that will assess different shares. You can do your research on companies that performed really poorly, where analysts were like, oh, this company is not a good company to invest in, so make sure you don't invest your money there. I'm sure you guys can go and find a couple of relevant examples from not just South Africa, from in the world, where experts said don't invest in that company, and then that company actually ended up going bankrupt because they weren't running that company properly. Small investors are invited to take part in the economy by buying and selling shares. So if you guys want today, after you finish watching this, you're feeling like you're the next Warren Buffett, you can go and buy shares. You can buy shares from as little as a couple of cents. They're known as penny stocks, all the way up to blue chip shares, which could be up to thousands of rands. So it allows anyone to partake in the economy, which is something very inclusive, something powerful. Venture capital market is made available. So venture capitalists are people that will like invest in different businesses so that they can get a better return, and they also help those businesses get up off the ground. Orderly market for securities serves as a disciplined market for securities, so that if you look at the JSE, they make sure that there's rules in place there so that no one is defrauded. Right, it's disciplined. You've got to make sure that you satisfy certain criteria before you can list your company. That's set out by the JSE, and the JSE will also make sure that if companies aren't behaving properly, so they're not giving in their financials, they'll be suspended from trading on the JSE to make sure that investors don't lose out on their money. Encourages new investments. I said maybe you guys go buy a couple of shares today. Next year, when you finish school and people are asking you what you're doing with your life, you can tell them you're just managing a couple of the companies that you own. You're not telling a lie, because whenever you buy shares in a company, you are an owner of that company. So just a nice little way for you to start growing your future assets. Mobilizes the funds of insurance companies and other institutions so that there's a little bit more money out there to get that money flowing, so we can invest in other avenues and other vehicles to make sure that we can grow our money as much as possible. It raises primary capital. So if I want to go and start a business today, I want to list on the JSE, I can get a whole bunch of capital in that I can use to grow my business even more. They regulate the markets for dealing with shares. Right? So you can't go buy shares from your local shop down the road. Right? They're regulated. Only people that are qualified or platforms that are qualified can allow you to buy and sell shares, because there has to be a record of that. Right? We don't want people losing out on their money and being defrauded. It plans, researches, and advises on the different investment options. So you've got shares, you've got other commodities that you could potentially buy. You also have different financial instruments that you can use depending on what you are looking for from your investment. And ensures that the market operates in a transparent manner, which is most important. People are investing their money. They need to make sure that everything is above board, and they can see that there's no dodgy dealings happening behind the scenes there. So everything is very, very transparent. It provides protection for investors because they're not going to allow a dodgy company to take people's money. There was an example when a family that had a little bit of dubious background in terms of business, they tried to list on the JSE, and the JSE blocked them and their companies from listing because they were like, the way you guys make your money is from illegal means. We don't want investors to be losing their money, because you must remember it's going to impact the JSE. If everyone's like, the JSE allows like these dodgy guys to list their businesses and we lose our money, people aren't going to have faith in the JSE, and the JSE is built on faith. If people have got the faith that it works, then they're going to want to invest there. Encourages short-term investments, right? There's a lot of volatility in the market, so you can make money off short-term investing. And then they facilitate electronic trading. So before, the JSE was actually a physical building where the stockbrokers were all there shouting and buying and selling. That no longer happens. You can actually get an app right now. While you're listening to me, you can go and buy some shares. The power of technology. All right, so I'm going to go into the conclusion now. So the conclusion is any good points for 2 marks there. So we're going to see what our potential conclusion for that essay is. So firstly, listed companies on the JSE will get more exposure to possible investors, right? Investors can be from all over the world, in which you get exposure because you listed there, right? If you look, we can invest in different stock exchanges around the world. So it gives your business that exposure that they can maybe attract international investors or local investors, because people are going to know, hey, your business is listed there. Let's see what they're about. Businesses should invest extra cash to generate more income. Remember, like, we want our money to grow. Like, you can keep your money very safe under your bed. Hopefully no one will steal it, but it's going to be safe. However, your money is not going to grow. Where we can invest in the JSE, our money can grow. Then we've got extra money in which maybe we can use to expand, or when times are tough, such as when the COVID pandemic hits in, you've got that extra money which will be able to carry your business through the tough times. All right, remember, make your money work for you. And then dividends paid out on preference shares will attract more people to invest in the company. Right, it's a natural thing with humans. Everyone wants to be a part of something good. So if you're getting lots of dividends, people want to be a part of that company. They want to be a part of that profit and get their money to grow. And then anyone can invest in RSA retail savings bonds. Right? You can go to a post office. You can go to a money market account at certain shops, and you can go invest in an RSA retail savings bond. Right? And various factors must be considered before choosing a form of ownership. Right? So when you choose a form of ownership, you have to take into account factors that are going to make your business successful, or they could hamper that. Right? So if you want to be a massive multinational business, you cannot run your business as a partnership, because there are going to be things that are going to hold your business back, such as there's no continuity of existence. There's unlimited liability of debts, right? Where if you have a public company, you've got continuity of existence, and you've got a limited liability for your debts there. So you need to make sure that you understand all of that when taking on respective forms of ownership. After the break, we're going to be going through a couple more questions. It's part of a Section B question, and then it could also form part of a potential Section C question. Leni, back to you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Guys, as Dave said, we are going to take a short break, but please don't go anywhere. Before we go on a break, guys, don't forget to hit us up on our social media platforms. Ask us any questions, send us your comments, tell us how the exam preps are going, and we'll assist you as best as we can. Let's take a short break, and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back from the break, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are still busy with your exam prep, so I'll take it over to Dave.
Welcome back, Matrix. We're going to be going through a potential question from your exam. It can either be a Section B question, or it could be part of a Section C question, your essay question, where it makes up one of the subtopics of the question. So we're going to go through the question now. We're going to break it down to see what they're actually asking from us. So the question says, advise Peter and Teko on the following factors that could contribute to the success or failure of their partnership. And the factors that we are going to be discussing is management and legislation. So let's see what they have to say. So the first factors for success in terms of management is Peter and Teko should be actively involved in the management and may use the ideas of other partners. So in the partnership, they're going to be actively running in the business there. They're going to be managing it, and now able to get information and help from the other managers, which takes the pressure off just one person having to come up with all the ideas or running the business. The second part is they should have access to each other's expertise when difficult decisions have to be made. Right? So if Lungi and myself are in a partnership, I can ask her for her expertise on how to welcome an audience into a TV program. She could use my expertise perhaps on business studies if there's a problem to help with the business there. So we're complementing each other there, and we're just taking the pressure off each other. They should be able to decide who will be actively involved in the management rather than appointing a competent manager, right? So they're involved with the actual running of the business, so that they've got their hands on the business, they know what's happening, rather than them going to and appoint someone else, and they're almost like outsourcing the job to someone else, right? Because now this is their business, this is their baby. We know that they're going to be putting in a lot more time and effort to the business compared to if someone was just working for them, because that's just a job for them, where for Peter and Teko, it's going to be about this actual company that they own and that they've started together. Right, if we look at the different failures in terms of the management of a partnership, right, so the first one is decision making can be time consuming. Right, okay. I'm sure you've had this with your friends or your siblings, where you can't decide what to do, and in the end, like, you waste so much time. You go to a movie, you're like, no, I want to watch this movie, and your friend's like, no, I want to watch this movie. In the end, it takes you so long to decide that you've missed the movie there. So you might miss out on a lot of opportunities. There's opportunities out there, and you have to act quickly, but you're taking too long to decide, then you're going to miss that opportunity. There may be disagreements on how to run the business, right, which may cause tension, which could lead to conflict. And if there's conflict in the business, we're not going to be able to achieve our goals and objectives, and we're going to miss out on business opportunities. And we might also get to a situation where the partnership dissolves because there was so much conflict between the different partners. Right, there are agents of the partnership, and a bad management decision of a partnership may be forced onto others. Right, so if one partner's got more ownership in the partnership than the other partner, they might force their opinion onto the other partners, even though the other partners may not agree with it, which could also then lead to a lot of tension being caused, and conflict, and a lack of trust between the partners. And then you've got different personalities and opinion that could lead to conflict. Maybe one partner is very loud, boisterous, and the other partner is quiet. The one partner is very aggressive when it comes to finding opportunities and making money, where the other partner might be a little bit more conservative. So this can lead to a lot of tension and conflict between the business, and now you've got the management that are going against each other there, which could have a detrimental impact on the business. Right, now, when it comes to legislation in terms of success of a partnership, firstly, a partnership is easy and cheap to establish. All that your partners have to do is draw up a partnership agreement. So you don't have to go and apply to register your business. You don't have to get lawyers involved. Right? Straight after this episode, if you and your best friend want to start your own business in the form of a partnership, you can start it straight away. It's cheap, it's easy, so you can start it right now if you actually want. Peter and Teko should be more motivated to make a success because their personal possessions are at risk. A partnership, don't forget, has unlimited liability, which means that if the partnership was to fail and they go into debt, their creditors can take away their personal assets, where if you look at private companies, they have got limited liability. So you cannot take away any personal assets from the owners, where in a partnership, they have unlimited liability. So your personal assets are at risk. Now, because your personal assets are at risk, you're going to make sure that you work harder so that your business is a success. Right? So you're going to have that extra motivation there. There's no regulatory requirements in terms of the name of the business, where if you look at other forms of ownership, there's regulatory requirements, such as a public company that's listed on the JSE, they will end with the word limited or LTD at the end of their name. Right. And it's only subjected to provisions of the Income Tax Act as for the partners paying tax. Remember, the partnership doesn't pay tax. The owners pay tax in their personal capacity. Where if you look at a private company or a public company, they have to comply to Company Taxes Act. Right, now, if we look at the failures in terms of legislation, firstly, as I've mentioned already, they have unlimited liability, and they are jointly and severally liable for the debts of the partnership. So I might be the good partner. I haven't brought any debts. Right, my partner's got himself into a lot of debts. He's been gambling. Right, I am responsible for those debts along with him there. So we are in serious risk of losing our personal possessions, because that's the way that the partnership works. Unfortunately, we have unlimited liability, and just because I'm not making bad decisions, I still have to pay for my partner who's making poor decisions. If one partner dies or retires, right, okay, that partnership dissolves, and we have to draw up a whole new partnership agreement. So there isn't that continuity of existence like a public company will have, or a private company. Oral agreements between Peter and Teko can cause conflict between partners. Right? Okay, it's very much, I said this, you said that. No, you said that, I said that. Right? So it can create a lot of conflict and tension, and if a partnership is going to work, it has to be built on trust. And then a partnership is not a legal entity and cannot be sued, or it cannot sue. Right, so if we look at a public company, they're a legal entity. They can sue other companies. They can sue individuals. Or a public company can be sued by other companies or individuals, where if we look like in a partnership, we don't have that. And the partners are the ones that will be sued in their personal capacities. And once again, their personal assets are at risk, which is what we want to avoid. All right, so as we wrap up paper 2, there are a couple of things that please, I do not want you to forget. Right, so the first one is use your exam guidelines. It's got a checklist of every single thing that you need to know. take your exam guidelines, go through everything that it'll say that learners must know, and tick off everything that you know. It'll give you a nice guideline of what is missing from your knowledge, and also show you where you need to work harder to make sure that you know everything there. So go through your guidelines. You'll see the type of questions that they'll be asking you. You'll be able to work it out there. I cannot mention this enough. Please use your time effectively. Right? Make sure that you aren't daydreaming. Make sure that you'll only use 20 minutes for section A. Right? Make sure you've left that half an hour for your section C. Right? Always be looking at the clock to see, right, how am I doing time-wise here? Because you don't want to be leaving out marks unnecessarily. That can be the difference between you doing really, really well and passing or failing. Right, start your 10 minutes of reading time. I'd suggest go to your essay. That you can pick which essay you're most comfortable with. So ready in your head, while you're answering, when you start answering your paper, your mind will be already answering your essay question. So by the time you get to your essay question, you prepared there. And then finally, guys, you can start with any question that you want. If you want to start your paper with your essay question, you are more than welcome to. Right? So wherever you're comfortable with, whichever way you want to go, right? You can start that question there, and that'll go hand in hand with your time management. And don't forget, nothing's too difficult for the brave. Thanks, Luni. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Matrix, thank you. It's been an awesome show. Thank you for engaging with us online as well as for entering the competition. A big congratulations to all of the winners who will be announced after the show on our Facebook page. We will be back with more revision on your #1 learning channel. All you need to do is check out our schedule on www.wasamatrix.co.za. While then, from me, Luni, Nicolene, and Dave, thank you so much, guys. It's been an amazing show. Goodbye.